about, let's bring this up, how to buy your house at the best possible price in the shortest possible time. Okay, and the first point we're going to cover today is how you can get expert budgeting and pre-approval guidance, so what you can afford. Well, the first thing is, of course, you can go and speak to your estate agent, or indeed you can speak to ourselves, and we can actually work with you to help you determine what might be a realistic budget. But your best bet really is to go to a mortgage broker, or to a bank or building society, and they'll be able to give you some form of estimate of what you potentially can borrow. Obviously, just bear in mind that banks, building societies, typically they are tied to one or two well, typically themselves, but they may actually have some arrangements with some other organisations as well. Really want to deal with a broker which has got at least access to the partial market, which might be 10 or 12 different lenders, or ideally a whole of market broker. Okay, and they'll be able to work out with you what your affordability criteria is and what you'll be able to borrow against it. And you probably may want to consider what type of mortgage products are available, whether it's interest only, repayment, or whether you've got some other form of investment vehicle which is designed to pay off your mortgage in lump sums or over a period of time. And as much as possible, try and get a mortgage pre-approval letter. This can actually considerably strengthen your offer that you make. Now, unfortunately, they don't carry quite the same weight they used to a few years ago. A few years ago, when you got one of those, it meant that the bank or building society had done all the credit checks and the searches, and it was really just subject to survey. These days, it doesn't really mean quite the same thing. But nevertheless, it's a good start. And if you do make an offer on a property, it'll put you in a much better position. Now, as far as today's content is concerned, if you're enjoying today, if you could very kindly like what you're hearing and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, that helps with the algorithms if you're happy to do so. But today is really about sharing value, and what we want to talk about next really is how you can gain in-depth market insights, how you can get local knowledge of what properties are going for in the local area. And a good place to do that is to go to somewhere like Rightmove or Zoopla and do some searches. Equally, we've got access to lots of comparable data, so you can get some in-depth analysis of what other properties are sold for in the general area and what properties are generally on the market for. So obviously, if a property is on the market, it doesn't mean to say it's worth that amount. It just means that is the price which currently is being sold at or marketed at. Timing can be very important. So there are certain times of the year when the market's a little bit quieter. Sometimes the summer months are a little bit quieter. Obviously, particularly the run up to Christmas, for the last 6 weeks of the year can be a bit quiet. So, big thing is you can pick up some bargains there as well, because quite often people, if they've still got the property in the market, they could be a lot more desperate to sell at that particular point. So that could be a good time to buy. And it's about trying to spot, good deals. Make sure you use your knowledge and ask the right people to get the correct advice in terms of, what you should be looking at, and drive around the area as well. Get a real sense of whether the area is improving, whether it's staying the same, or whether it might be declining. And you can find that it's surprising how much of a difference that actually makes, because you happen to be buying at the beginning of a trend that can really help carry you through if you want to sell your property in 3 to 5 years' time. And then the other part really is to sort of leverage your professional network and your negotiating skills. The thing to do there is to make sure that you have put yourself in the best position possible. We've already talked about that. If you've already got a solicitor appointed, you've spoken to the solicitor and made sure that they're ready to move quickly. And it is actually really important, because a lot of solicitors can be quite sleepy. They're not particularly incentivized to act quickly on anything. And at the end of the day, if you want to buy a property or to sell for that matter, you just need someone who's going to get on with it and get your property that you're after to exchange contracts as quickly as you can. And obviously, you can be in a situation as well when you are making an offer on a property that you could be in competition with other people. In fact, that's very common in a fairly fast-moving market. And how do you position yourself to be the best in that space to improve your chances of your offer being accepted? Now, obviously, we discussed that a little bit already, because clearly, if you've got a mortgage offer agreed in principle, that puts you in a good position. If you don't have a property to sell, or if you do, if you've got quite advanced in the process, so you're only perhaps a week or two away from exchange, that's a really good thing to do as well. And also bear in mind, if you got to a situation where you've seen a property and let's say they've got 5 or 6 viewings in a few days' time, what is worth doing if you've decided on that property is ideally don't position yourself where you're competing with everyone else on the same day. If you were to contact the agent and simply say something along the lines, look, if I was to make you an offer now, bear in mind I'm in a very strong position to proceed, what figure would that need to be at for you to be prepared to take the property off the market? Okay. And that's a crucial thing. Really, you need to get the agent to indicate what that figure is going to be. And if they are prepared to give you a figure and you're prepared to pay for it, you need to make it very clear that you're only making the offer on the basis that the property is going to be taken off the market straight away, and that solicitors will be put immediately in touch. Okay, and that way people know you mean business and you're actually serious about it as well. And also, if it's difficult to negotiate on the price, maybe you might be able to agree certain concessions. So, for example, if you particularly like the curtains or the carpets, then you may be able to negotiate those are all included within the price, because they don't really have any value as another property, and it may help you get out of a hole. You don't necessarily want to buy some nice new curtains or shutters or blinds the moment you move into a property. There's always a lot of money going out very quickly when you come to buy and sell. And really, the next thing is about being able to act quickly with professional support. I've just noticed the typo there. My apologies about that. If you haven't found a property, make sure you're on the relevant portals and do a series of saved searches, but also set up notifications so that you get notified immediately the property meets your criteria. Now, it can be a bit of a pain because your inbox can get flooded with properties that become available, and it can be very distracting. But we have got some solutions for that to make it much easier for you. So if you want to know a bit more, do ask that question. And if you are serious about moving and you're up in a fast-moving market, then basically go and arrange to see those properties as quickly as possible. Clearly, you don't want to miss out on that perfect home. And being prepared to be decisive and act quickly can really put you at a big advantage. Otherwise, you could risk being in a perpetual position where you make offers and you think they're going to be accepted, and actually you're outbid or outrun by someone else. And then when you've in a position to make that offer, just make sure the agent is geared up to send out the head of terms as quickly as possible. And that means you having your solicitor ready, having your mortgage details ready, so you're ready to go straight to the broker or to the lender to actually get that done. Okay, so that's the best way to eliminate potential competition, is just to make sure you're very clear in your objectives, and it's about working in cooperation with the agent, but also with the homeowner. Okay. Now, obviously, there are situations where the homeowner that you're wanting to buy from hasn't found a property yet. Now, that's a little bit of a different approach. And you need to be mindful of the fact that not everyone will go out and find a property. They might have put their property on the market, may not have found something else yet. So you need to just be very careful that when you do make an offer on something, that first of all, if you're in a strong position, that they're prepared to take the property off the market. You also need to determine really how serious they actually are, and that by asking the right questions, you can quite often get some access to some additional knowledge. So the other thing is about how do you access off-the-market properties. Now, that's a little bit more difficult. A key part of that is perhaps ringing up different estate agents on a regular basis, not just relying on them to tell you, because they might have taken a property on the books, but they haven't actually listed on Rightmove or Zoopla yet. So you might be able to, if you're in a very strong position, get them to tell you about it first. So therefore, you might be able to get in and view the property and have first dibs at it. Also look for properties which have recently reduced in price, and there are certain things you can do to make sure you get access to those or notified about those. And also be mindful if someone, if you're buying a property that's owned by someone who's perhaps an ultra high net worth individual, discretion might actually be very important, or indeed you might want discretion as well. And there might be certain sensitive situations in which you may want to keep certain types of transactions quiet, because you don't necessarily want people knowing where you live, for example, or there might be some other very good reasons as well. And this is where customized property searches really come in, and the importance of getting those right. And then in terms of going really on to the next stage, we're going to talk about received guidance on strong offers. Now, always when you make an offer, try and back it up with market-based stats. So if you've done a lot of comparable searches to find out what other properties have been for sale and what they've sold at, so that when you speak with your agent, you can speak with authority and credibility and knowledge. That puts you in a much better position. And understand as well what's important for the seller. So we talked about that a bit already. So the seller may have just found a property, but they may have got a wedding coming up, for example. So they may want to delay the exchange or completion till before or after that. It's about trying to understand other things that might get in the way. So, for example, if you're buying a house that's quite run down and it's full of clutter, then it may well be that people need a little bit of time to sort themselves out. But what you can do as well to put yourself in a good position is, and obviously always take professional advice over this, but you could, for example, proceed to an immediate exchange of contracts and agree to a delayed completion. Now, the big thing with that is that yes, you have to pay a deposit, but obviously at the stage that someone's exchange contracts, they are legally committed to it, and they would lose their deposit, and they would be in breach of contract if they weren't to continue. So that can be a really good strategy, because at least you've secured the property. You might have agreed to a delayed completion to give the time for the house seller to deal with what they need to do before they move on. Or it might be that you're much further ahead in the process. You agree a delayed completion to give the seller a chance to actually exchange and complete on their own. Okay, and sometimes you can get the agreement of the seller to actually be prepared to move into rented accommodation as well for a short period, or in with relatives. And if they really want to sell that, they sometimes are prepared to do that. And then it's also about always having the right attitude and guidance. Sorry about that, just send that to voicemail. So we always understand you're dealing with human beings. So it's very important not to be over aggressive in your stance, be very conciliatory, very considerate, and try and always factor in the other person's point of view. Because a lot of people will only buy or sell from each other if they actually happen to really like you. If for some reason you've got the seller's back up, or the buyer's back up for that matter, then of course that it could be they end up by looking for reasons as to why not to accept, rather than to accept your offer. When you're buying or selling a property, it's very much a transactional approach, but it's also about really understanding what's going on, so that you can fully respect and take into account the needs of the other person. So actually, we've covered quite a bit in terms of today. So what I will do is I'll just share my screen momentarily. So obviously that's been the topic for today, and the points we've largely covered really relate to these points here. So that's what we've covered as part of today. And let me just move this little banner that's got in the way. And if you do want to make contact following on from today's session, do drop me a text or a WhatsApp message, or give me a call. Obviously, if it goes to voicemail, please leave a message, because I may well be in meetings. Or drop me an email to rupert@propertyadvisoryservice.org. And you can find me on Facebook there, and also YouTube as well. So hopefully you found this of some use. If you do ask some questions, because even if this broadcast is finished, I do try and get to those questions and reply to them personally. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So thank you very much for joining in today, and look forward to seeing you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.